So ultimately, the medium was the best one that we had. And from the data, we could see that if we managed it well, if we looked after it in the traction zones, it should easily be able to make the end of the race. How did Lewis manage to stay on the mediums for 36 laps, racing Leclerc, being able to pull a gap and then get the fastest lap? Well, we did a lot of work with the car overnight on Friday, and clearly we got the race balance very good. It was certainly looking after the rear tyres well. And then very importantly, Lewis was able to attack Leclerc in the early part of the stint when the grip was good. And then once he was through, he was actually building a gap but doing a lot of management at the same time. So when it got near the end of the race, Lewis asked about fastest lap. We thought it was worth a go, but crucially, because he had good rubber on those tyres, he was able to do that very impressive lap time and give the team another point. Do we think qualifying P6 and P8 was the maximum that we could have achieved? No, we don't. We were actually very disappointed with the qualifying result. And when you look at the gap to pole, it was 0.29. It's bigger than we'd like, but it wasn't a huge gap. And normally you're not so far down the order if you're less than 0.3 off. But crucially, at other points in the session, we were going very well. Lewis popped up at the very top of the timesheets in Q2, but because we'd used more tyres to get there, when we got to Q3, we only had one set remaining. Now, we decided to do that second. That's quite a normal choice because the grip often improves as new tyres are being used and rubber goes down. But when you look at actually how the session panned out, it looks like the first run was the quickest for nearly all the cars, and perhaps would have been further up if we'd done the new tyre there. But what we really need to do is have a faster car, be able to get through qualifying to Q3 more easily, and then hopefully have two sets to do two runs on new. What made us choose the medium for the red flag restart, and did we have data to say it was going to make the distance? Well, we had data from the first stint, so Lewis had done 24 laps. He had rubber remaining, but here we're talking about going 36 laps. But we could also see that one of the Ferraris had done 31. So it wasn't so different, and when the car's on lighter fuel, you can normally get a bit further. Now, the other thing that actually made the decision quite easy for us was it was either that medium or the hard tyre that had already done around 10 laps. It had got cold on the safety car, and we felt that that tyre would have been very tricky off the line and probably no quicker. So ultimately, the medium was the best one that we had, and from the data, we could see that if we managed it well, if we looked after it in the traction zones, it should easily be able to make the end of the race. Given the challenges faced at the start of the weekend, what was the key to having a competitive car? Well, really the answer there is the overnight simulation work. So when we finished Friday, we analysed the problems with the car, we're discussing with the drivers where we need to improve it, and then we hand over to the simulator team back in Brackley. We had Tom Gamble, one of our development drivers, in the car this weekend, and they worked through the night going through a whole range of setups, and luckily they found a nice direction where we were able to improve both the single lap and the long run. That was a setup that was showing it was easier on the rear tyres, which was important because that was what was limiting us in the race work that we did on Friday. And then in FP3, you could pretty immediately see that those changes had put us into a happier place. Now, it's easier when you do land the setup in the right place, but the reality is, with weather conditions changing and the cars being different one year to the next, you can't guarantee that. And what's really important is when you do have a difficult Friday, that you've got the team and the tools in place to solve those problems and then come back fighting on Saturday. Were we happy with Fred's performance in FP1? Yeah, Fred did a great job for us. Now, Fred is a key part of our development program. He does a lot of the Friday night work that we do on races, but importantly, he's also helping us develop next year's car in the simulator, and we have a lot of items that we need to analyze and investigate there. So being able to put him in the race car was fantastic because it gives him an opportunity to feel what the real car is actually like. That helps him with the correlation work. It also helps his general progression towards becoming a Formula One driver of the future. Can we confirm that the update is working? Well, if we look at the performance in Austin, we look at the performance here, being able to race cars like McLaren, Ferrari effectively, we'd say that the track data is definitely suggesting that we've made a forward step. Now, bear in mind that all the top teams have been bringing updates to the car over the last few races. It is crucial that you can match them on development, even better them, to be able to continue to fight them on track. Now, the other thing is we collect a lot of data off the car. So pressures off the floor, pressures off the wings, loads on the car, and all that data is correlating really well with what we're seeing in the wind tunnel. And that's crucial for next year, because this floor is actually a step towards the development direction that we want to take for 2024. So very encouraging signs, but still a lot of work ahead of us. How was George losing so much time on the mediums in that final stint? Well, when we wear checked the tyres after the race, we could see the rubber remaining was very low. So basically he'd run out of rubber, then you lose a lot of grip. Now, why did that happen? Well, we left him attacking Carlos for a lot of laps. He was also having to manage brake temperatures, which meant that he couldn't get as close as he wanted or brake as late as he could. And all of that causes sliding when you're in the dirty air. The sliding takes rubber off the tyre, and then you end up without enough at the end of the race. So on reflection, what we should have done was perhaps recognised earlier we weren't going to get the overtake, we weren't going to be able to get that position, and just backed him off and got him to manage to the finish. What are the team's expectations for Brazil? Well, it's an absolutely fantastic event, and we've had a lot of fun there over the years. So great result with George last year, and then an absolutely memorable race with Lewis from the back in 2021. However, we've seen that from track to track, things can be quite different. We can't assume that we're going to go there and perform well. And we also know that the field's incredibly tight. Now, throw into the mix, it's a sprint race. So with a sprint race, there's a lot more jeopardy. You've got 2 qualifying sessions to get right. You've got 1 hour to try and get the car set up exactly where you need it, which if you start in the right place, you can do. If you're in the wrong place, it's very, very challenging. So ultimately we have our eyes wide open, but we're looking forward to the track. There's great support there from the crowd. It's a fantastic circuit. You get brilliant racing, and we can't wait to get running.